Okay, episode 11, coming off of a little break. We were gone for a week, come back, collect some things, and so...
Had to get our life together.
Kind of like that.
You know that post-travel...
Right. And you've picked up, it's that time of year where you pick up quite a bit of photo shoots, and...
Yes.
So timing is a little tougher. We're going to talk about...
What about our introduction?
11. This is episode 11, intro, Sean and Danny Prevelations podcast. Gym owners, online coach is coach.
Yes.
Nutrition coach is coach. Photographer and...
World traveler.
I mean, technically, yes. Yeah. And then...
Ultra marathoners.
Well, one of us is anyways.
I mean...
Kind of. Which that gets into what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
Is we're going to talk about some differences in adventure races, and trail running, hiking, like that whole genre of stuff.
Yes.
Which kind of gets into, just like you saying, ultra marathoners, how I was like, well, not really. I don't really consider myself an ultra marathoner, mainly because I haven't done like a straight up, like haven't finished a 100-mile race.
Yeah, but technically an ultra is anything past a marathon.
Right. So I've done multiple marathon plus distances.
Right.
But then on the ultra marathoning, people immediately think that means that someone has ran for longer than 26 miles, which just gets into a really weird, like, what is technically an ultra marathon or not an ultra marathoner? Did you literally run for more than 26 miles? Did you run, walk? And that kind of gets into what we want to talk about trail racing and trail races and adventure races, how running isn't really I wouldn't say the normal, but it's not a requirement or standard for these distances and these types of races.
Right.
So a lot of people think, in the marathon and the road world, they think that there's like, I have ran a marathon or I have finished a marathon.
Sure.
Neither one of us have ran a full marathon.
No.
You've definitely gotten the closest in training for one.
Yes. Sorry.
But we have finished marathon distances.
Yes.
I would say the longest single straight nonstop run I have ever done without resting, like literally running the entire time, I think maybe in some sort of really off training, I think I might have gotten to like 17 miles one time, roughly. And I think you've gotten to 20.
20.
Right? But that's the single longest running distance we've ever done.
Yeah.
However, we've done very long ultra marathon distances.
Yes.
When you get into the ultra marathon world and the ultras, vast majority of the time they're off road. It's not like 100%, but for the most part, they're always like some sort of trail race.
Running. Yeah. Yeah.
For the most part. And the ones that we've liked to do, which is we've liked to go on to do those things because they've been intentionally off. They've been hard trails. They've been in really pretty places, which is the reason we do them. We don't do them to go just run nonstop for a long time. Like there's some courses that are in different parts, flat parts of America where like there's a couple in Kansas where it's 50 miles and it's just running down a gravel road.
Yeah, I'm not going to sign up for that one.
No, that's not good. But that would be a true, like, oh, I literally ran for 50 straight miles, which I don't know if people actually do that the entire time. I'd assume I guess they can. But adventure racing, trail running, trail races, compared to the running world, there's just it's a different type of culture. It's a different type of community. It's a different type of intention. And one of the things that when we got into that, was we didn't transition from being runners to getting into off-road running races.
Mm-hmm.
We transitioned from doing hiking into doing slightly faster hiking.
Right, with like a set time and like with those things.
Right. So we went from walking, hiking to hiking, shuffling.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're getting into like actually trying to train some running into a regiment.
Yeah.
For off-road stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't coming from the running world into the off-road world.
No.
Right. And
well, I mean, I guess for Moab we did do like a lot of.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I'm saying like we're not like people who have done like.
Oh, we weren't like doing marathons and then like,
right.
Oh, now we're gonna start running on the trail.
Right.
Right. We were just like hiking.
Right. We were just doing things. We were going to really pretty places, tough places to go do hikes, and then we started to kind of get into some of this idea of like, oh well, we weren't too bad at like keeping a half decent pace, hiking up and down gigantic climbs over long distances. I wonder if we could kind of like tighten this up with a little bit of shuffling, or maybe there's some bigger things we could do to see how hard we could push our ability to, which they kind of call like fast packing.
Yeah. 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 Because sometimes when you get into this long distance stuff, it's like, how long do you actually want to be out there to make these things happen? So sometimes just shuffling makes it faster.
Yeah. And you just made some content, like an Instagram post last night. There was, 5 reasons why you should sign up for a next trail race.
Yeah.
And there's more than 5 reasons, but we just want to dive into what that is and why when we talk to people about getting into adventuring and getting into hiking, there's like the idea of going, if you're from Oklahoma and you're local to here, like you go to Arcadia and you like walk around in the dirt. That's kind of hiking, kind of walking.
Yeah.
Right? And then there's like, oh, let's go to Colorado and hike up a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like the over-under on hiking camping, which a lot of people think that we are like big campers because we do so many outside things.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we just like being outside, like doing hard things, like going to places that are super pretty, but we also like getting back to like a hotel room.
Yes.
Or a shower and a bed.
I would rather just hike through the night than take
or
camping gear.
Or just not sleep and just move the entire time. So how does the adventure trail runs and races, when someone is getting into hiking and they're like, cool, I want to get into this bucket list of places to see or distances or things to accomplish inside of the hiking world, while the trail running community is a really great transition from just regular hiking.
Mm-hmm.
Or why some of these trail races are the best place to start as a beginner.
Yep.
Because as we've been trying to help people who've been like, yeah, I want to raise my hand to like go out and do something. We always recommend trail races, and it seems like there's a bunch of like initial guards put up.
Yeah, they're like, no, I don't want to go do a race. I want to go on a hike.
Yeah, right. And why do you think that is?
I think there's a weird, obviously, like, it feels like a competition if you're signing up for an event, right? And like in the road world, like what I've seen so far, it's very consumed by paces and kind of this like time, or like, stopping the watch on like if you're taking a rest break or whatever. And the trail world is just kind of different. Right.
But why do you think people are like, if someone were to...
I think that's why, is because it feels like a competition, and like maybe you could be last, or it feels like you could like fail it if you're not like running the whole time, or
okay, so
maybe you
so
feel
the first reason, or the number one reason, is that they don't want to sign up for a race because they don't want to feel like
they're racing
because they don't want to feel like they're failing or
or
being the last,
looking stupid,
or looking like everyone's going to know that I'm not keeping up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Because, I mean, that's how I felt the first time we did it. I'm like, well, I don't really want to come out to this event because I'm not like a runner.
Well, okay, let's back that up a little bit though.
Uh-huh.
What was the first event? The first like organized like trail race.
We signed up
did.
for one like 15K or something like 3 months before Moab. Before we were like stepping off for Moab. Okay. That dark and dirty one, right?
Yeah.
That was probably my first time to like pick up like a bib number.
Yeah. And that was
like
a 25K.
Oh, it was a 25K.
They had a 5K. They still do. It's 5, 10, 25, 50.
It was a 25K. Yeah.
Right. So 25K, we knew it was going to be through the night.
Uh-huh.
And it was going to be a distance that we had done that distance at the canyon hiking before, but never had been like pushed in a like kind of a little bit tighter pace from what our previous like known was. But we also knew that from we were trying to get ourselves. We signed up for that race because we wanted to get ourselves prepared for what the race environment was like because we had already signed up for Moab 240.
Yes.
We had never been to a trail race when we signed up to Moab 240.
Yes.
So we didn't know, like, is it kind of like when you go to a road running event? Is there registration? Like, how does the setup at the finish line? Like, how does all the mechanics work of going to a trail race?
Yeah, and I remember I felt just as nervous on, like, am I going to, like, look like I don't know what I'm doing out here? Because I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. And, like, what do I wear? What do I pack? I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. And then so that's probably the number one reason. What's
just like the unknown, maybe. The unknown and like not really wanting to do a race because you don't really care about racing.
Okay. So the first thing is going to be that the pressure of being at a race and being on a pace, hitting a finish line, the potential like everyone's going to know that I'm slow.
I'm a newbie or something. Okay. Yeah.
And then the next thing is I don't even care to race.
Right.
I don't care about finish times. I don't care about any of that thing. Why would I like go to a place when I don't care about those things? Right. They don't matter to me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what do you think is the next big thing? The third reason why someone's like, why would I even consider that?
I don't know. Those are probably my top two.
You think most people are thinking those two reasons why I would not go to a trail race?
What do you think it is? I think that's probably it.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, from my perspective, that's how I felt.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's probably, I would think so too.
Because I think like not capable or like you're just worried about.
Yeah.
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 Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Falls into the first one.
Yeah. And I think that's also maybe why some people don't like to go to group hikes. Because if we do like a group hike and we say, hey, we're going to do a little mini PAC, we're going to Turkey Mountain, there's probably a group of people that are thinking the same thing. I'm not going to be able to keep up with the group. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm going. Yeah. I don't know how to prepare for this. I don't want to look stupid doing it.
Yes.
Which is a lot of reasons why most people just don't do a new thing ever.
Right.
Because that's just an uncomfortable environment to be in.
Yeah. I feel all of those things every time I try something new, but I am an Enneagram 7, so I have too much FOMO.
Right.
But those feelings are,
Yeah, right. I mean, we sign up for stuff all the time and have no clue what's going to happen. But we also have just gone through lots of growth things where we know that it's really not. We know that the worst possible outcome is never really a reality. It's just some story that we create inside of our heads, and then with enough exposure to things, we realize it's never really like that. But we put ourselves into lots of positions to be exposed.
Sure.
And let's talk about why, one, those things are valid, but what are all of probably the non-traditional benefits of signing up for a trail race?
I think, well, especially if you're wanting to get more into the hiking adventure world, the trail races are so great because, well, one, I feel like people love to talk about community, but the trail race community is phenomenal, and you could meet a bunch of different people that are also going to want to do the same things that you're doing.
Yeah, so we've been around, let's see, we've gone to 1, 2, 3, 4 Oklahoma-based trail races, 5 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone to, obviously, Moab 240 twice.
Twice.
We've done one in Colorado, one
Taos?
in Arizona, one New Mexico. So probably under a dozen signing up for something, or thinking about definitely being close to signing up for something in Colorado. What was the one we did in Colorado? We did maybe that's when I did the...
Oh, you probably did something in Colorado.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you say community,
Uh-huh.
let's paint a picture of the percentages of type of people that are there when you go to these things. Okay, so you have... let's just start there. Generally speaking, most of these are way smaller than a big Memorial Marathon type thing. I mean, most of the trail races have always been around, 200 people?
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Roughly.
say. 200.
Maybe 200 people.
Yep.
Like, of all the ones, Moab 240, smaller ones, big ones, 10Ks, 50Ks, they've all been around this, 150 to 250 people total, maybe, right?
Yeah, pretty small.
Which is kind of like going to a local 5K in volume of people.
Yeah.
And how many of those people are serious, gonna run the entire thing, are dialed in, percentage-wise, of those 200 people, how many people think are like that?
10%.
Okay, 10%. And then how many people are there from percentage that you can tell it's their first time, they're probably just going to walk the entire thing, and it's they've never really done anything like this before?
Probably another 10, 20%.
Right, at least on the 10, 20%.
Yeah.
And then in the middle,
Uh-huh.
you probably have, I would say there's 2 more groups of people left.
Yeah.
There's this, because that's 80% of people, 70% of people left over.
Yes.
Half the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
they are kind of in this window of I'm going to potentially give it my 100% effort. I'm going to push.
Mm-hmm.
I've done this a couple times. I know that I'm not going to place, but I'm here to kind of really push myself to maybe hit a new best.
Yeah, they're just there to challenge themselves.
Right.
And they're let's go do something hard.
Right. And then there's the next group, which is probably most of our group, which is probably, I would say 40 to 50% of these races are this group of people who are just there to cross the finish line.
Yeah, they're just there to have fun.
Yeah. That's really the biggest percentage of people there are there just to get to the end.
Yeah.
To kind of say, yep, did that, great, cool experience, and then move on.
Yeah. And 100% of them are goofballs.
The vast majority of them are goofballs, that's for sure. It's definitely a different crowd because everyone's expecting to get dirty.
They call them dirtbags.
Yeah. So I think when someone is I'm nervous about to be in a race environment, they think
it's all these 10%.
Right. They think 90% of people there are that top 10%.
Yeah.
And it's never like that.
No.
Never like that at all.
No.
There's always beginners.
Uh-huh.
Always. There's always people who walk the entire thing.
Always.
And then there's a huge chunk of people out there who are just excited to be there and to get across the finish line.
For sure.
Huge. And that's, I would say, we've done a dozen events or so in 4 different states. And that percentage has been even at Moab 240 all the way to that random half trail marathon we did in Arizona a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
It was the exact same percentage of people there.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, yeah.
So that part of the race community, that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Is the vast majority of people there are not these crazy top 10, I'm going to get first place people.
Right. And those people are still so fun. They're just still there to just push themselves. Right.
And they are very welcoming to the bottom 10%.
Yes.
Because they remember being the bottom 10%. So they're very, very accepting of everyone around them.
For sure.
There's no one kind of holding their nose up high or shrugging their shoulders at anybody.
No.
It's never been like that. Everyone's been super nice to us every time we went to any of these events.
For sure.
And we've shown up to a lot of events outside of our community and known 0 people. 0 people. And everyone's been super nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. Okay.
Okay, so...
So outside of that...
that's probably a big one from the community.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the next benefit of going to a trail race?
All logistics are taken care of already.
Right.
So your route,
Yep.
you've got flags everywhere.
Yep.
You have a start time.
Yep.
You have bathrooms at the start time.
Right.
Or start line.
Yep.
You have water stations.
Yep.
Even a 10K will have water stations and snacks along the route with most likely some aid station,
right.
Which is super beneficial because if you're on a trail,
right,
there's not that.
Yeah, so sometimes, and a lot of these races are held at places that you would normally like to go for a hike or a shuffle without an event being there.
Yeah, they're just organizing it.
So if we've done a PAC or if we've gone somewhere or if you've ever gone somewhere and you've been like, yeah, I want to go on this hike at this place. It's next to this park or next to this area, right? You've got to figure out where to park, what time do I start, how long do I go, how long is this going to take me,
yes,
how much food and water do I need, right?
Yeah.
So you have to think of all those things. You have to think of where the trail goes. You have to have all trails up. You have to have the map downloaded. So you've got to think about all those things if you just want to go out for a regular hike somewhere that you've never been before.
Yeah.
But a race or an adventure series or an adventure, running adventure, however they like to think of it, they've got all those things taken care of.
Yeah.
There's where you literally step off from is already built.
Yep.
The route is already flagged.
Yeah.
Right? There's people there. There's parking there. There's all the things to support you are already done.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is that's a nice relief because you're like, cool, let's take Robbers Cave with the Outlaw 100 from Dark and Dirty and for their ultra they do in February. Robbers Cave State Park in Oklahoma is a really pretty park to go to.
Yeah.
And you can go there 12 months a year and you could easily go park. You can look up the trails. You can go on your own pace.
Yeah.
And it's going to be the same place that this race is happening.
But there's little pink flags everywhere and water stations. And you don't have to worry about filling up your water bladder and carrying all your snacks all day. Right.
So logistics is a really big one.
Yeah, it's a huge stressor off of your plate. Yep. And it's an organized time for you to play in the dirt, basically. That's how I would view it.
Right. And we've been like the one we did in Phoenix, we were in Phoenix for a work thing. And we could have, and we've done this before, we've looked up all the trails and we've looked at what hikes are in the area. There's something we would like to do. And we also always
look at races.
We always look at races around the area around that time because we know, that would be fun to do as well because we don't have to think about anything.
Yes.
Especially when it's a brand new area that we're traveling to. We're like, we don't even have to
That's the most beneficial.
Right.
Because it's all there for you.
All there for you.
And it was a really pretty course. And we probably wouldn't have had as great of an experience that day on finding parking and this trailhead and carrying all of our water if we wouldn't have just signed up for this half trail marathon that half the people are walking along anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Just pulling this up.
So logistics is a big one.
Yep.
And then what's the other? So we have community. We have logistics, and then what's going to be the next, kind of unknown, secret, hidden benefit of showing up to a trail race?
We already talked about logistics and snacks and food.
The 5 you made.
That was kind of all included. Oh, meet trail friends.
Yeah, and then that's another part about the community is you start to surround yourself with other people who are thinking the same things you're thinking. So if you're thinking, I want to get into bigger hikes, I want to get into more experiences like this, the people that are there at those events have the exact same mindset as you.
Yeah.
And you're always going to meet people, just like if you've gone hiking, you meet people on the trail. You meet people on the race.
Yeah. And it's a weird, so on one of my top 5 things, on the reel that I posted was no one gives a heck what your pace is and walking is normal. But that's what's fun about it is because you'll kind of catch up to somebody and then you'll be walking up a hill because it's a big climb. And then you guys start to chit chat and then you just create these little mini chats and relationships along the race because you're at somebody's pace for a little bit. Yep. And then you just like, okay, well, I'm going to start shuffling again or whatever. And then that's it.
Right.
But it's fun.
Yeah. So it's fun because you meet other people who are kind of thinking the same thing you were thinking.
Yes. We already talked about views.
Okay. I'll get into views a little bit as well. I would say the vast majority of times these races are generally somewhere that's a rougher terrain, which is generally somewhere that's a prettier terrain.
Yep.
So Oklahoma, almost all the ultras and the Outlaw 100 series, and they do multiple distances, are always around a state park, which would be somewhere you would like to go anyways.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times when you're looking at somewhere that you're traveling to, or you're looking for something event, it's generally somewhere with some kind of pretty view along the way.
Yeah.
Because that's why the race organizers chose to put the race there.
Yeah.
It's not like, let's run down this gravel road for the next 20 miles and come back down, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
North of Waterloo or something. Because they're like, well, why would anyone want to come run down a gravel road?
Right.
They pick places that are pretty on purpose.
Yeah.
Because that's what they would want to do as race organizers.
It makes the trail enjoyable, yeah. I wish you could turn your mic up a
And
little bit.
so they're always held somewhere, almost always held somewhere with some sort of pretty view along the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty.
And then what's another benefit?
I put adult beverages provided.
Adult beverages provided. And the running world is getting a little more like this too, with this whole like beer after the event type of feel. The bike community is a lot like this.
And it's really not like, I feel like when we say like adult beverages, it's not just about like the booze. It's really the atmosphere after, or like the celebration that's happening during, which doesn't really have to be like booze centered, but
yeah. It's not that you're like, cool, I can go to the thing and get drunk.
Right.
It's more the idea is like you're trying to paint a picture of the type of environment you're at. And obviously, if you go anywhere and there's a random table full of booze for no reason, you already know that type of environment is a pretty relaxed environment.
yes.
And that's really what we talked about from, like, I remember the first time we went to Dark and Dirty. It was our first real trail race, and we get there, and it's like the sun's going down, the race is about to start, and it's a multiple loops race, and there was, a full table full of all sorts of snacks and refreshments, and Gatorades and waters and all that stuff, and then quesadillas, and they had like a barbecue taco truck out there for after the race, and then there's just like a handful of like bottles of booze on the end of one of the tables. No one was around it. No one was like, it was just it was there, which I was like, oh, this must be a pretty relaxed environment because people are finishing this thing or even intra, and they're like celebrating with these things that are kind of non-traditional things you wouldn't see.
Yeah.
And then the snacks. That's something about the ultra world is you think trail snacks or you think racing snacks, you just think like Gatorade and Goose.
Or like half a banana.
Right. That's what you think from like
oranges.
A regular road running world.
Yeah.
But the ultra world is way different.
Yeah, especially when you are into like a little further distances. They're like cheeseburgers and quesadillas and peanut butter sandwiches and
right, because when you're
all
doing
sorts of stuff.
When you're doing things that are past this like 3-4 hour mark, you just start wanting to eat real food.
Yes.
One, because it's just you don't want to eat the same thing for 4 or 5, 6 hours when you're putting out that much effort.
Yeah.
So calorie dense food and normal food that's like kind of going to a campground.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So the fun food, that's a nice change too.
Yeah, for sure.
Into the trail races.
Yeah.
And I think the next thing about the trail races and feeling like you're going to finish last and the walking part, the coolest thing about going to them is that there's almost always multiple links of courses you can sign up for. So so the Outlaw 100 that's in February.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Their longest distance to sign up for
is 100
miles.
35 miles, I think.
135.
Yes.
And then underneath that, you've got routes all the way down to, I think, a 10K.
5K.
5K.
So we got a 5K, a half marathon,
Uh-huh.
a full marathon, a
Uh-huh.
50 miler, a
Uh-huh.
100 miler, and a 135 miles.
Yeah. So, which is awesome is because as a newer person or beginner, you can go to this race and there's no way you're going to be last when the race starts for everyone almost at the exact same time. And that might staggered a little bit.
They are staggered a little bit, but
you could walk a 5K, the entire thing, and there's going to be people running a marathon who are still not going to be done. So it's not like anyone ever really knows who's in last place because the distances are all different.
Well, yeah, and in the trail world, though, like, not that people are trying to call anybody out, but, like, in some of these bigger races, the first place person and the last place person are celebrated just as much.
Yeah.
They call it DFL,
Yeah.
dead fucking last.
Yeah.
And they'll, like, hype everyone up because you think about, you're like bringing the trail, like, in, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's actually, like, a cool...
Yeah.
I think.
Whatever the longest distance is, they usually have the biggest cheering committee for the last person on the course at the longest distance.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Yeah, because if you've ever done like a road marathon and you're one of the last ones, everyone's like shutting down.
Right. Yeah. Not fun.
No, that is not how, because the trail community, like with the table and the food, like people just hang out. They're just out there to enjoy. Yeah.
Right. And it's kind of a campground
Feel.
yeah. Kind of like a tailgating feel when you're at them.
Yeah.
So people will be finishing the race, hanging out, eating and talking to whoever like is with them and crew or pacers and friends.
Yeah.
And celebrating more people coming through the finish line. So it's not this like real intense feeling of I'm the last one out here. Everyone's going to be like, you know, everyone's going to know I'm the last person because the last person is in a full big distance.
Yeah.
And that person who's finishing is definitely excited just to be finishing.
Just to be finishing.
Because they didn't quit.
Yeah. 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 And there's, I just think the trail world is different, especially when you get into like a little longer distances because like the terrains are different. You kind of, the unexpected you know, and so like, I mean, we've been out to a race and did not finish.
Yeah.
You know, there's no like shame or
No.
I don't know.
No, because in that world, did not start,
Yes.
did not finish,
Yes.
right? Two different things.
Yes.
And they call it towing the line is when you start a race.
Yes.
Because did not finish is way better than did not start.
Yes. Towing the line.
Right. Because they're like, you're out here doing it, and the vast majority of people don't want to do that. So the fact that you even start is already a huge credit to effort that you're even getting out here in any kind of sense at any ability.
Yeah.
And I think that comes back to another hidden benefit when you get into like goal setting is you can say, I'm going to go do this hike. I'm going to go to this place. I would like to go do this thing in this range of dates or this place or this distance away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you sign up for a race and you got to put some money down,
Yes.
you're already anchoring a goal.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be anything wild, but you're like, I've never done a 5K trail race.
Yeah. Like an event.
I have no intention of running a 5K.
Right.
But I've also never done a 5K trail race or a hike at ever.
Yeah.
So you can say, oh, well, there's one 3 months from now, and I'm going to get online. I'm going to buy this ticket. I'm going to sign myself up for it. And now you have an anchor, a time, a place to kind of go, okay, all right, I've got this thing out in the future, and that's my habit anchor.
Yeah.
For things I want to get going, and now I can kind of like really get myself to do that. And you can reverse that out to some things like, oh, I'm going to book a room for the Grand Canyon in May to hike it.
Yes.
But you can say, oh, I know I need to, I know I'm going to be outside in the rocks and the dirt for this Grand Canyon experience in May.
Yeah.
Oh, I could start to get myself anchored around, oh, well, I know I should like have a baseline of like 5 to 10 miles of hiking ability.
Yeah.
in February, you're like, oh, I'll sign up for an event. And now you start to anchor these dates and these habits around things of like, okay, instead of just saying I'm going to go do some random thing, I'm actually going to sign up. I'm going to just put my name down for a distance that is something I haven't done before or have done before, and it's kind of uncomfortable.
Yes.
I think that's the point of also like, what distance are you going to do? It's like, well, if you know I've done 5 miles, I've done 5Ks 100 different times. Or, not 100 times, but I can go walk 3 miles in the neighborhood over and over and over again.
Yeah. Yeah. Then it's like,
right.
oh, well, I might try the half marathon.
Right. Or like, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to sign up for the 10K because that's going to push me a little bit.
Yes.
To kind of stretch my goal,
Yeah.
but it's not way beyond like, oh, I have to sign up for a 100-mile race.
Right. Exactly.
No,
yeah.
I'm just going to go out there and do something that like, cool, I know I can do. Maybe it's a little bit of a stretch goal. Or the same thing, like I go walk 3 miles around the neighborhood all the time. I wonder what it would be like to walk 3 miles across a state park.
On the rocks.
On the rocks
Yeah.
in the dirt that I've never done before.
Yeah, for sure. And you were talking a little bit about, if I booked a room at the Grand Canyon, having these like mini race events leading up to that is also like a really good staggering on how you could prioritize training.
Right.
That keeps you on track.
Right. And that's how we did, when we did Dark and Dirty the first time, it wasn't that we wanted to do Dark and Dirty and do a 25K.
Right.
We were like, no, we know we have this big goal past that, and this would be a really great forced training to keep us go. Because when you go up to one of these events, you naturally, your ability to have excuses to quit decreases considerably.
Yes.
Because if you're like, man, I really need to get a 10-mile training in, but now it's like all on me to go walk 10 miles around Arcadia.
And it's like kind of raining this morning.
Right,
and
I'm not
like,
gonna go.
and then it's going to be hot.
You get 5 miles into it and you're like, I'm just going to quit. I'm
What
just
if
going to go
there's a
home.
snake out there?
Yeah, you sign up for a race that's along that path and you're like, nope, got a place, got a time.
And I paid $100 to be out here.
Right. And then you get out there and you're like, oh, well, it's a 10-mile loop.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get my 10 miles of training in.
For sure.
So trail races can be really great for kind of like force training as well, which is another positive benefit. Yeah. And sometimes the pace is a little, not that you're going to have to keep pace with the fastest person, but being in just when there's more energy around, you're going to have a better pace. Yeah. And you're going to have less breaks and less time than you would if you're by yourself. So if that's in a group hike, if that's in a group race, that's still going to be constant. Yeah. Like you're just around more energy, you're going to have more energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely, for sure.
For sure.
Anything else surprising about trail racing? I guess the biggest takeaway is even if it says trail race, it's not a race.
I look at it as an event.
Right. Or an adventure event. Or an adventure hike. Or an adventure series.
Yes.
When we, so Moab 240 is ran by a company called
Destination Trail
Races.
But
Right. And they call it adventure racing. They don't call it like running racing because they're anchoring around, we're out here to go to a destination to have an adventure. Happens to be that there's a race happening at the same time. Yeah. And that's really where we want to think about signing up for something in the future. Is like, cool, I am signing up for an experience. There happens to be a race going on. Yeah. But that's not what I'm out there for.
Yeah, that's what I would view it as. And that's what I think we typically view it as. And that's why we like to do all of these things. It's because it's like, well, what experience do we want this month, next month, this year? Right. Like, oh, well, we've never done, a race in February. Let's see what that's about. It's going to be cold. I don't know. Yeah. Just like something different.
Yeah. And then I think
I just had people ask questions, so I was going to answer those at some point.
Questions.
What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say that another plus side to, you can do this with hikes too and races and these adventure races, is that most of them are happening more than once or a handful of times. And so when you're creeping on these things, what to expect, it's easy to be like, get on YouTube or get on Instagram and just type the name of the race in. Yeah. The location or whatever it's called. Yeah. And you're going to see things populate that you can go, oh, oh, I see these type of people out there in the images, or I'm going to look up the Outlaw 100,
Yeah.
Facebook page, or I'm going to look up
Yeah.
on YouTube. I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to see the types of things happening, the type of course, so that it's since they are so organized, there's generally a lot of like data and a lot of content around them from the past that gives you an easy way to kind of like creep on them to learn more about it
Yeah.
than just to like read all trails.
Yeah. For sure.
Okay.
For sure. Okay, so posted this reel last night about the 5 things that we just talked about. And then in that, put that we were going to sign up for this Outlaw 100 that's happening in Oklahoma in February. So
We are not doing the 100.
we are not doing the 100, no.
The-
I don't really know what we're doing yet.
Yeah, the course is called
It's called that.
Outlaw
Yes.
100.
Yes.
Right.
But they have a 135 mile, a 100 mile, a 50 mile, a marathon, and a half marathon, and a 5K. Okay. So that being said, that is what this is about.
Mhm.
These questions
Okay.
that I'm about to.
Okay.
Somebody commented and said they were thinking about doing the 50.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So these questions are pertaining to the 50-mile race.
Okay.
Sleeping in the dirt or napping 50 miles in 39 hours because that's the cutoff time. I've never done anything like this before. What do you pack? What would I need? So many questions. So if I were this person, right, and we go back to the race page
Which is where?
on ultrasignup.com,
Okay.
Outlaw 100.
Okay.
You can kind of go through and read, and this is how I would like, okay, I would not actually, I don't do any research when I do anything, but this is probably what Sean would do, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Is he would go through and he would look at the 50 mile category if that's what you were interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And like, okay, so it says the half marathon is a 13.1 mile loop,
Mhm.
and the marathon consists of 2 loops,
Mm-hmm.
and the 50 mile course consists of 4 loops.
Okay.
So that means from the starting line
Mm-hmm.
to where your like car would be parked,
Mm-hmm.
or where the
The
big tent,
Right. The biggest aid station.
yeah,
All that stuff.
food,
Mm-hmm.
water, you would be able to loop back there 4 times.
Right.
So if I was considering like any type of nap or worried about filling my pack with something, I would know I can do that every 13 miles.
Right.
If I need to.
Right.
So that's probably one. Cutoffs are 39 and a half hours for the 50 mile. And then it has like some GPX files. So to figure out how long it would take us,
Yeah.
this is hard.
Well, you can take two. You can when you're looking at these big of distances,
Mhm.
and we'll take an example from the 50 mile and
Mhm.
the half marathon.
Okay.
Right. We'll exclude the marathon distance out,
Okay.
and we'll kind of talk about these two.
Yeah,
Distances,
because it is a loop of a half.
because it's kind of the same thing no matter what.
Yes.
Right. So if I know I have 39 hours to hit the cutoff, which cutoffs meaning certain distances have certain cutoffs so that the organizers can keep better safety and better just better overall like control of the entire race event.
Yes.
Mainly from a safety standpoint. You can't just say, hey, just go do this thing and we're going to hang out until you're done.
Right.
'Cause
Yes.
some people may take that into some wild numbers.
Yeah.
And so what they say is like 39 hours to complete the 50 miles, meaning that you can however many loops it takes you to get, but if you hit 59 hours
Mm-hmm.
and you're on lap 3,
Yes.
your race is done for the day.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, the simple math is, okay, just take the 39 and divide it by 50 miles. Okay, that's going to give you a pace of, if I never sit down and I just move, I need to do 3/4 of a mile an hour.
Right.
Okay, so that's 0.78,
Yes.
which is like real slow.
Yeah, it's less than a mile an hour.
Yes, it is less than a mile an hour.
You know?
Yeah, and so if you were to go to, let's just say that you're going out for an evening stroll.
Yes.
You just walk out of the
Casually.
house. You go for an evening stroll. you're doing like 2.2 miles an hour.
Right.
So that would mean less than 1 mile an hour is a very slow walk.
Yes.
For
And that's how
39.
much you would have. That's how much time you would have.
That's how much
you
time
would have a
you'd
lot of time.
You'd have a ton of time. So even if you were to take that 0.78 and double it,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, oh, well, I could just straight have a nice good walk
Yeah.
for 20 straight hours, and I would be able to hit my cutoffs.
Right.
Okay. On the flip side of that, you're like, cool, if I can walk for 5 hours, rest 1 hour,
Uh-huh.
I just need to do that 4 times in a row, and I'm going to hit my cutoffs.
Right.
So there's lots of ways you can just reverse engineer that math. And then you can also reverse engineer math of like, okay, if you're signing up for 50 mile, you kind of know your last known training distance
Yes.
and time.
Yes.
And you're like, okay, the last time I went to Lake Arcadia, I hiked / shuffled / ran
10 miles.
10 miles, took me 2 hours,
Okay.
right?
Sure.
Or 3 hours or however long it took you. Okay. Right. So 10 miles in 2 hours is like 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, I have plenty of time
Yes.
for an asterisk to this amount.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you just take your known longest distance over that finished time,
Yeah.
and you don't put moving time. You put total time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I wouldn't play around with the like stop start
No.
on your watch.
No, it's like, okay, I started moving at 8 a.m., stopped moving at 10.
Yeah.
Like I got back to the car. It's 2 hours to complete this.
Yes.
That's what a race environment is going to feel like.
Yes.
And then just redo the math back and forth over and over again.
Yeah.
On the trail nap part, really, if I would think that unless you're exceeding like 36 hours,
You probably don't need a trail nap.
there's not going to be any need for a trail nap.
But knowing that you can go back to the beginning aid station every 13 miles is also really beneficial. If you were just going to be going out on a big 50-mile loop, that
Right.
might change a little bit,
Yeah.
but still checking aid stations would be like top question.
Right. Because then you would know, okay, if it's a 13-mile loop and I know I need to crank out 4 of these, if I get 3 in and you're like dragging, you're like, well, no big deal. The car's on the loop. I could go back, take a car nap for 15 minutes
Yeah,
and get back out there and keep going.
for sure. But even if you did 30-minute miles, that would take you 25 hours.
Right.
So you would still probably be good on sleep.
Yeah.
I mean, you would be uncomfortable for sure, but you'd be, yeah. Okay, and then the other one, what do I pack? So this also will depend on your aid station situation when you're looking at trail events.
Yep, and these races all do a very good job of when you read into it, or if you do when you do YouTube kind of creeping on it, they're going to say it's a 13-mile loop, and there is a water-only station at mile 7.
Yes.
And like, okay, if I know 13 miles is going to take me 3 hours, and there's going to be water there, I know during my training, I generally consume 1 liter every 2 hours. You're like, well, I just need to have like at least a liter of water on me, because there's going to be a water station halfway to refill up.
Yes.
And you think, well, okay, well, if it's 3 hours during my training, how much food do I normally consume inside of a 3-hour window?
Yeah.
Oh, I consume 500 calories. Well, then you need to take 500 calories with you, because you know you're coming back.
And you can restock.
And you can restock
Yes.
with either whatever the course has or whatever you have.
Yeah.
Because you could lay out a bin or something with your name on it or a bag, and you come back and you could throw all that food back in and restock your 500 calories every loop you come through.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really taking the distance in between each aid station that you know would probably be your longest, and that's what you would want to practice packing with for your trainings.
Right.
In theory. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
I think that was it on those. Do you have any other questions?
I don't know. I think a lot of the what to wear, what
do I need?
What type of shoes, all that stuff comes down to like just starting to experience that inside of your training.
Yep.
And looking at the race events and looking at
Weather,
looking at time of year, and then just starting to get your training ready to go. You also ideally want to start your training with the gear that you think you're going to like do the race at, and that's early on. that may just be some experimentation.
Yeah. I mean, but this is another great thing about doing a trail event and a race versus going out on a 50-mile hike by yourself is because, like, what do you need?
Right.
There are so many people out there and the aid stations that'll have KT tape or, you know, emergency bivy if you needed one, or hot hands or something like that.
Right.
For like those situations.
Right. And if you're signing up for a 50-mile event and that's going to be your anchor, you're like, okay, well, what other event is like a 10 or 15 or 20-mile event 4, 6, 8 weeks out from that, so I can begin to test these things.
Yeah, for sure.
So what does someone need? I mean,
a little running vest would probably be nice.
Depending on distance and depending on access, right? A running vest, shoes, off-road shoes. Running shoes,
socks that feel good,
and then
don't cause blisters.
Some sort of layer, and then you just really dress for the weather after that.
I mean, we love to use our trekking poles.
Yep, completely optional. There's no requirement for those at all.
No, I'm trying to think what else I would need or want. Lip gloss in my front pocket.
Electrolytes, yeah.
Electrolytes
That's
are good.
about it.
My favorite candy.
Yeah, there's tons and tons and tons of content creators that have. The list of possible combinations of these things is so big.
I need to make a reel.
There's so much out there.
What all is in my adventure vest doing a 50-mile?
And that's also changed depending on
it
distance,
does.
time of year.
Because what I pack for the Grand Canyon for 50 miles is not what I would pack for Oklahoma 50 miles.
Right. R3 Canyon, you have to step off 100% self-supported. Yeah. There's nothing along the only thing that's on the way is like water. Yeah. But everything else is on you. That's way different. Which is why going to a 50-mile
is going to be great.
Race is because you have so much support to help you. Yeah. And you've got like medical and people to help you in case something goes wild instead of being self-supported.
Yeah. And if you break your trekking pole, they can help you fix it.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So some surprising things about trail races. Number one, don't think it's a trail race as I have to go out there and race. Just think of this is going to be a really cool, unique experience that I get to expose myself to. Yes. Secondly, I would try to like grab a buddy and say, hey, let's sign up for this thing together so that you can anchor your habits with you. If not, go out there solo and you're going to make friends. Yep.
It's fun.
It's fun. And you can do the shortest distance you've ever done the first time, and then every time you go out again, you can get a bigger and bigger distance. Something like, this one in February. I don't care to do a full marathon distance.
Oh, I'm like, you're going to do the 50?
I don't care to do 50 either. Us going to the canyon doing 50 because I want to do 2 passes across the canyon is way different than me saying I want to do a 50-miler in Oklahoma.
Yeah, but some
people might. Yeah. Some people might. I'm just saying personally, I would probably do the half marathon because that's going to be a really great 3-hour experience. Sure. Which is like longer than a normal workout, but I'm not going to be out there forever, but I'm still going to have to work pretty hard. Yeah. And I'm not going to suffer for like hours upon hours upon hours upon hours. Yeah. Unless training just goes really great and I'm like, whatever, I'll just do the full and figure it out as I go.
Yeah, and then sometimes I've signed up for a full and only done the half.
Which is normal too. That's another normal part about the races is you can sign up for one of them and you can change them. Every race is a little different, but generally you can change them all the way out to like a week away. Yeah.
Or I've signed up for a 10K and did a 25K. Yeah. I mean, it just has, know, it's just how it be.
Right. There you go.
Okay, cool. All about trail racing. If you have questions, send me a message on Instagram.
So if you've done trail races before and you have any comments or suggestions for people, put them in the comments below or go ahead and make a comment on Danny_Prevail about this is what I learned from trail racing and this is why I think everyone should go do a trail race. Yes, if you've never done one before, sign up for the next one. Look up Outlaw 100 if you're in Oklahoma or around the area. You want to come out to Robbers Cave in February
7th?
Which is in
I made that
8th, 17th?
I made that up.
Something like that. we're a good 90 days out, which is a nice
8th.
which is a nice window
8th through 10th.
to just start some like nice easy training and get ready for it. And it's winter time, so training won't be awful like it is in the summer here.
Yes.
Which is also nice to be in a cooler weather temperature window.
It will be a good time to train for a race.
Okay. There
That's
you go.
all we got.
Leave us a comment, like, comment, subscribe. Go to Danny_Prevail. Tell your opinions about
Yes.
things. Cool. See you guys.
Bye.